Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new webinar from the Fluid AI team. Today, we're going to talk about credit memos, and in largely, that's a place where banks have typically not seen AI, and it's an interesting place where our team is seeing that credit memo generation using AI could be a real game changer, and it's being powered by something called autonomous AI agents. So, Abhinav, before we get into credit memos, wanted to talk to you a little bit about what are your thoughts on autonomous agents and what they can sort of be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think last era was all about agents that could be kind of connected together into workflows and orchestrate them. So this agent fires, then this agent fires, then this agent fires, right? And each agent would be like a specialist in what it does. I think what's where the industry's moved essentially is that because the agents have become so powerful and their capabilities have gone up so many fold, we've moved away from the world where we're saying, I need to pre-decide which agent and which order. The agents just simply go ahead and, you know, they run automatically on their own. Like the agent decides what to call next, whether it needs another specialized agent to do this, whether it can handle it. Um, it's kind of making a lot more of these pre-built decisions on the fly because their intelligence has gone up. So that's what autonomous agents are essentially, where you're giving it a task, you're saying you figure out the flow. So let's take an example, right? If I was to do um, let's say research, right? If I had to research my competition on LinkedIn and prepare a report for it, right? I would probably in the old world build three agents. One agent that goes and scrapes LinkedIn,
Yes.
uh, one agent that kind of puts all its thoughts together, one agent that writes a report, right? And I'm trying to create a workflow out of it. That's not needed anymore, right? The same agent, one agent, autonomous agent can be like, okay, do this task. It will then make its own task list saying, okay, I need to do these three things. I'll probably do it in this order. It might come out with even more funkier, cooler things to do. Uh, like, okay, I'll look up LinkedIn and then I'll do a second verification on Google or Perplexity as well, right? So that'll be my second task. And then it will decide whether it will do that second, third task, or will it spawn like a sub agent to do that task. And therefore your capabilities go up, the amount of configuration goes down, and the output quality significantly rises because the time to build these workflows and to try out new cases drastically drops.
And a lot of this is powered by the sub-agent architecture, right? Because these agents using technologies like MCP integrate really well with data, and that's what we're going to show in the credit memo. It's the LOS that you're connecting to systems such as the MCA or the company's registry. You're pulling in balance sheets, maybe from the government databases. You're pulling in income tax data. All of this, and all of this is essentially using tech like MCP, etc. So this massive credit memo agent can get everything it needs. And then the output is also interesting, right? It's not just system-based output. It can be a very detailed Word document or a PowerPoint or a PDF, right? So it can be really functional because of these sub-agents and these MCPs.
Exactly. The beauty of sub agents is that it makes the task a lot faster, right? So imagine, yeah, I have to research five companies, right? Now that one agent will say, okay, research company one, now research company two, now research company three. And imagine if there was 10 companies or 50 companies, right? The scale, the time starts to linearly grow. But with the concept of sub agents, it could be like, okay, hey, I've spawned 10 sub agents, one assigned to each company to do the research. And so suddenly,
Mhm.
from taking 10 units of time or taking 1 unit of time, and all the results come back, I move to the next step as my main agent. So speed is one massive advantage. The second big advantage is the context available to each agent starts to reduce massively, right? And that kind of makes the system less expensive to run and much more accurate, because imagine one agent, right, and it has 10 massive summaries of data from 10 companies, right? Now it's like huge. Imagine a human going through that bigger document, right? You will make mistakes, you will get lost, you lose key information. But if each agent only has one company's data, and then it's told to summarize that for the master report, it will do a far better job. So I think that's that shrinking of context, as well as the ability to run them parallelly, really what allows sub agents to become a very powerful mechanism for these.
So without further ado, let's get into credit memos now. I think that's what our audience is here for today. And let us show everyone how these credit memo generation tools using this kind of autonomous agents are now sort of really changing the game in terms of what's possible in the credit memo generation space, which has been extremely complex and really not been sort of seen till now in terms of what's out there. So let's sort of go a little deeper into what we can do with credit memos. So what we are seeing now, and that's the autonomous agent that's coming in, right? Single agents are now becoming more powerful than ever before. They're dealing with structured, unstructured data, connecting to systems, and giving the output across formats. Sorry. And what we're really excited about with all of this is the power to move from document to decisions, right? A lot of time in things like credit memo is being spent on just documents, right? A lot of times analysts are spending hours working with these documents to copy paste the data into a format of the credit memo. So the paradigm that we are now saying is possible with agentic AI is to move from days to minutes when you look at credit memos, right? And that's really what we are most excited about. A little bit about Fluid. So we've been around for the last 14 years, focused extensively on agentic AI. Been through all the eras of AI, but working a lot with global financial companies, Bank of America, Barclays, LIC, Royal Bank of Canada, Societe Generale, NABARD. So have a wide variety of experience in understanding credit works and in understanding the way a lot of the lending systems work and in making that better. This is our Bombay office where we're shooting this beautiful webinar from. Happy to have you guys over anytime you're in the city. We also were the company behind the AI after Warren Buffett for the 100th anniversary of Forbes. And we also wrote the world's first AI written book called Bridging the AI Gap. So, all right, let's start off with a fun quiz on credit memo. What are the challenges we are seeing when we talk to folks? So just, for folks in the audience, just let us know your thoughts on when it comes to credit memos, how long is it taking your teams to sort of write these, and how long it's taking for you to get a credit decision out there to a company that's applying for a loan, to an individual that's applying for a loan, where you're looking at, having to write these extensive memos. So first question up on screen, how many hours does a credit analyst typically spend preparing a single corporate credit memo? And this is human, not AI assisted right now. 2 to 4 hours, 6 to 10 hours, 12 to 20 hours, 2 to 3 days. So 4 options up on screen. Just let us know what are your thoughts around this. And, we'll sort of reveal the answer in terms of our research and what we've seen with different companies out there. So, all right, I'll move on. So the answer is 2 to 3 days. That's what we are seeing with a lot of credit analysts. That's the amount of time they're spending on a single corporate credit memo. And imagine for a bank which is getting maybe on average about 1,000 applicants a month, that's 2 to 3,000 man days just spent in turning around credit memos, right? So your loan applicant has dutifully filled out all the details. They've submitted all the amount of information you need. And then it's taking 2 to 3 days just to get this memo out. That's if you have enough analysts on the field to process a memo as soon as it comes in, right? And typically, we've seen their backlogs at banks. It takes 3 to 4 days of waiting time, then 2 to 3 days of actual working time on it. So it can be anywhere from a week to 10 days before credit memo is generated on an applicant. By that time, the applicant is applied at 3 other banks, 3 other financial institutions, and maybe got a loan out there directly. So that's a major challenge which we feel that the AI assistants can really help in. The second one is, how many systems do you think an analyst has to use to prepare one single credit memo, right? And we have a bunch of numbers up on screen, 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 7, or 8 plus systems, right? So imagine, right, an analyst has got a credit memo to write, he's got the company's details, and the challenge he has now is that not all the data is in one place, right? He's going to have to hit multiple systems to get this. So the answer that we've seen across our banks that we work with is 5 to 7 systems. That's a loan origination system, the core banking system, credit bureau systems, financial statement tools, borrower portals, internal spreadsheets, email threads. All of this context switching, right? You're looking at 6 to 7 systems, some of these as unstructured as email, to write a single credit memo. The challenge that anyone can have is that when you're working with so many different systems, one is inaccuracy creeps in, two is you're constantly context switching, and three, there really is no one single place to get the gist of what the company is doing, right? You're literally having to sort of spend time, half an hour in the LOS, 45 minutes in your email, 20 minutes in an Excel sheet. And the kind of reporting that comes, the kind of memos that get generated become a real challenge for a lot of folks. This is a really interesting question that I put to you. What percentage of credit appraisal work is purely manual, right? So we've talked to a lot of credit analysts out there, and we've asked them this question saying, hey, what percentage of this do you think is not actually analysis, but just manual, maybe reading a report, copy paste data from a system to another system? And it's interesting because we thought it would be anywhere from 20 to 40%, but the number actually turned out to be much higher. 80% of this work is mechanical, right? So a lot of the analysts we've talked to have said actually only 20% of the time is they're spending on actual analytical work. 80% is mechanical work. They're looking up data systems, they're just querying them, they're getting a data point in, they're putting it in the report. So 80% of this is just simply looking up data, putting it in the report, right? And what's interesting is that once you look at it as being 80% something that can be, automated, that can be moved faster, that last 20% where the human analyst really needs to spend a lot of time gets rushed, because a lot of time has just been spent in gathering data and getting it from different systems, etc. And the last 20%, which is the core, is rushed because you need to get the memo out. There's a loan applicant waiting for a decision. He's probably talking to 4 to 5 other banks. So there's not really that much time. So when we looked at all this, what came to us was really surprising, right? We said there are really 4 places where AI can really play a big role, right? Fragmented data retrieval, whether it's the LOS, the core banking system, the credit bureaus, or the email threads where a lot of the loan application data sits. It just is a lot of manual fragmented data. The second is the manual financial analysis, right? A lot of times, credit analysts are spending time building ratios, trends, commentary, which is drafted from scratch for each borrower. But can AI sort of give them a first draft, a first principles understanding of what the borrower is looking like, so that they can go into the more deeper parts of the borrower profile rather than just spending a lot of time on basic ratio analysis, trend and commentary writing. The third piece is the revision cycle, right? Typically, a single credit memo can go to 2 to 3 analysts. A junior analyst sets up the first layer of data. The second senior analyst comes in and sort of refines it. A third analyst overviews it and gives it a peer review. Can there be a cycle revision wherein it's maybe just one analyst reviewing it when it comes out of an AI rather than it being multiple analysts? And the scale, right? You really can't scale a credit memo operation without adding more people or increasing turnaround times, right? And there's a whole lot of credit analysts who complain of burnout, who complain of stress, because it just is an extremely stressful activity when you're having to churn out so many credit memos. Also, what's interesting is a lot of credit memos have a peak and trough situation, right? There are periods of time when a lot of loan applicants hit the system together, and you just cannot staff for that, because obviously a credit memo analyst writer is a significantly senior position. You need significant expertise. So teams can never staff for the peak. And at that time, when banking business, the business folks are demanding quicker decisions because they don't want to lose business to the competition. So let us show you our entire agentic AI credit memo workflow. Abhinav, would you like to walk us through the steps the AI does, and then we'll obviously show a actual live demo of the system in action?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way the entire system works, right, it starts with the first process, which is essentially getting all the data that it needs to prepare this credit memo, which is all the documents the applicant submitted, financials of that organization. Now, this could be from any government system or any core party system which the loan applicant has authorized to use to kind of get real time data, bureau reports that are there, all of that kind of comes in, gets auto ingested uh, within the system, right? Then, apart from that, the agent also goes into the loan origination system, into the core banking system, right? So if it's an existing relationship, let's pull out all data from there as well. And once you've got all the data that's needed from these disparate sources, that's when the fun part starts, right? The agent kind of goes into its analysis, which is it's trying to deep dive and build a good context and structure of this application, understanding the ratios, the trends, and kind of building a structured output of everything that it's understanding. Kind of very similar to how a human would do this, right? And then after that is the fun part, which is drafting. This part's the breeze where once the decisions, all the data has been put together, we kind of putting it into a specific format that the bank wants, typically presents its credit memos in, and that's what's used to draft out the final application. And then from there it moves to the humans, right? Humans review this credit memo. If they have any edits, any feedback, they can put it into the document, or give it to the AI directly in the conversation, right? And just tell it to kind of make those updates, and the AI will kind of do another cycle, make whatever changes the analyst suggests, or even give feedback as per what the analyst questions are. And that's where the human in the loop comes in. And then end to end, you have kind of the entire flow running. Raghav, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. So let's just see this in action and how this entire journey from LOS, getting the data, to the due diligence, to the scoring, to the actual memo generation goes down into minutes. And this is something that we're very excited to sort of show you in action. So the entire journey is sort of starting in the LOS, right? That's where we're sort of seeing the loan origination system, right? That's where typically the loan journey starts. That's where you enter a lot of data about a company. That data is resting in the LOS, and this could be the balance sheets, the PAN cards, the tax data, the articles, the legal stuff, all of that, right? And so what happens is now typically the analysts are logging into the system as humans and downloading all this, the balance sheets, all of that, and then they're sort of reading all this data and working with it, right? But using the MCP side of it, and this is we're just showing you an actual LOS in action, we are able to sort of go in and grab this data automatically, right? So great, this is a typical loan application. This particular bank has put in all the data of that loan application here. They put in the email notes. They have been very dutiful about it. But it's all still resting in a system of records. So an analyst is typically going to have to go in here, download these PDFs, download these documents, and then read this email thread, etc. Right? Because he's going to have to sort of spend a great couple of hours just simply downloading, aggregating this data, seeing what's there, making sure everything sort of makes sense. So that's step one, wherein a lot of time has been spent by the analyst just in going through to the LOS. Now let's come to an agentic approach, right? So we have set up an agent, an AI agent, which is going to directly integrate with the LOS. We've set up another agent, which is going to integrate with MCP with the company's database, which is your register of companies, the taxation databases. We've set up another agent, which is going to imply the credit policy of the bank. So it understands your 400, 500 page credit policy and is going to apply it. And as soon as an application hits the LOS, it's going to pull all of that information through and actually make a analysis. So it's going to now, it's pulled the LOS information, it's hit the government databases to pull out all the information about that company from the government databases. This could be the registrar of companies, this could be the tax portals, this could be all of that. And look at that, the structured information of the company comes in almost instantaneously, providing a comprehensive understanding of what this company has done, what is the situation with it. The credit policy has been hit on it because it's sort of understood from all the financial data whether this application can go ahead, etc. And now an autonomous agent is actually writing the credit memo in a Word document or a PDF as per the bank standards, right? So the output is not coming as a technical go, no go, or just as a screen it's coming in the Word document, the PDF, the language of business, which can actually be used by that particular organization to take forward. So end to end, from the loan origination system to the autonomous agent writing the entire credit memo real time across different sections is all happening in this very superior flow. And we'll see the output very shortly sort of come through in terms of what it sort of creates and how it sort of moves. So here we have it. It's a comprehensive document with tables, with data, and all of the data, previous loan instances, your previous judicial instances being pulled, analysis of the financials, the financial ratio analysis, etc., a commentary on that, all of that being pre-filled. This is almost a 40 to 45 page report that is autonomously being generated out here, all from those different systems, right? So we hit the LOS, look at that, the background, everything has come through as well. And all of that's coming instantaneously from these different systems. So, what's interesting out here is that we've got that as a Word document. We've got that as a 25-page Word document right there and then. The AI has done all the mechanical work. And now when a human in the loop comes in and a credit analyst sits with this report, all they need to do is review it, give it a final approval or a decline. But that process, which took a credit analyst days, is now happening in 15 to 20 minutes. And they need to put another 10 to 15 minutes to approve this, right? So the loan throughput of a bank now is increased exponentially in terms of what's possible and how things can be done. So, Abhinav, will you sort of walk us through what actually happened under the hood out here? Like, there were different components. We talked about things like MCP, the LOS integrations, the on-prem side of things, the hallucination shield. So if you could sort of walk us through, all these four concepts in terms of what's happening.
Yeah. So, these are the four kind of key areas which typically catch every bank out when they're implementing this, right? One is getting the right integrations in place. Your credit memo system or your AI that's doing your credit memo needs to be talking to all these systems, right? It needs to be talking to loan origination. It needs to be talking to core banking, because if it's not talking to these systems, then essentially you have like a glorified chatbot that your team is kind of doing all the heavy lifting and most of the work, and the bot's kind of doing just the fancy stuff. Now, when you have to connect to these systems, it's obviously a lot more complicated. So that's where MCP comes in. MCP is a fancy word for just a protocol that AI is used to talk to all these systems quite easily and out of box, right? So it just makes your implementation very, very standardized. That means tomorrow you change your AI vendor, you change your AI approach, you change your AI agent. MCP ensures that everything that you've built can just kind of be a lift and shift, as opposed to having to now go ahead and rebuild everything from scratch. The third part is having this on-prem or in some form of hybrid deployment. Now, for most banks, the data is very, very critical, and most of their core banking loan origination systems are either resting on-prem, and for a few, it's resting in their private cloud. But you want the AI system and the models to come to where you sit, as opposed to them being in some third party on the cloud. Because when that happens, essentially you could have a lot of data leakage. This is your critical, most important data, right? Your customer data, your new loan applications. From a regulatory and just from a good best practices perspective, that's not data you want any going out or being seen by any third party. And the hallucination shield is the last part, right? Just to ensure that nobody tricks the system. The AI is actually super accurate. So if it's picking data from one system and putting it into the credit memo, it's not making any kind of mistakes, elaborations, changing numbers. That's what the hallucination shield does. Very, very important, a very underlooked part of the whole experience. That's super critical over here. Raghav, you're on mute again.
Sorry. So I think one thing that Abhinav, you talked about was how this can be on-prem, right? And a lot of banks get concerned because when it's a credit memo, the kind of information that a customer has revealed to the bank could be quite sensitive. And with privacy laws getting stricter and stricter in almost all countries, you don't want to be in a situation where this data is gone onto the cloud or into any unknown model. So one thing we're sort of looking at is getting all of this on local GPUs and making it work locally rather than on cloud. So you do have these different options. You can obviously make it work with a cloud LLM as well. But one thing that we are quite confident is about making it work locally on the computer. So we've had some very strong success.
Now we have a question from Nick Anderson. So just
Yes.
quickly, he's asked, when the agent pulls borrower data from multiple systems, how does it handle inconsistencies or missing data? Does it get flagged for those analysts to try and fill, or does it try to fill the gaps on its own? And that's a great question, Nick. Essentially, what we're seeing is the most popular flow that we've seen out there is the AI tries to get all the data possible. If it feels something is missing in a particular system, it tries to go somewhere else, right? So if in your loan origination system, certain revenue numbers that are critical for this application are missing, can it go to the bureau and pull that data out? So the AI will try and fill the gaps, but obviously there are times where something is not available. And then in the credit memo, the AI will actually put information not found and what sources it kind of search for and kind of mark it in red. So that becomes a great way for the analyst to not miss or glance over. And then the analyst can say, okay, I'll get this data from here, or talk to that customer, do whatever is needed to kind of fill that gap in. So that's typically the flow that most people follow.
Right. So, what with Fluid we have been doing is we've been doing this for a long time. We've been putting a lot of banks in production, different use cases. Obviously, this is one of our newest one, but it's something that we're very, happy to sort of bring. I think it can really change the way most banks sort of work today. And, excited to see if there are any further questions. Do reach out if you feel that this is something you can look at your bank. It's not just credit memos. I think, Abhinav, obviously there was a journey larger than autonomous agents as well, right? Would you want to sort of talk a little bit about how these autonomous agents, obviously we've given an example of credit memos, but how these can sort of change the game across a bank and how they sort of work and really operate?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge most banks face, when they try to implement agentic AI today in the traditional workflow format, is that you're trying to essentially take a very complex, a very unstructured problem, and then try to put like these block structures to it, right? And that's where you eventually reach the conclusion to be like, oh, we can't use AI for this. You probably need people. Because think about it, right? If building a credit memo or doing any of these complicated banking tasks, right, underwriting a loan, was as simple as, do step one, do step two, do step three. If step three has an issue, go here and go here. That standard flow chart. If you could represent every loan application that came in that standard flow chart, then there would be no such thing as a human doing a credit memo, right? That would probably have just come within your credit, within your core banking system as a feature, or within
Or your
your
LOS. Yeah.
loan origination system as a feature, or some techie in the org would have just built it as a workflow, right? Like, okay,
As an
do X,
RPA
then
maybe. Yeah.
yeah, as an RPA, as a code. It would have been automated a long time ago. The reason it didn't get automated was essentially this realization that there's a lot of dynamism, there's a lot of edge cases, there's a lot of situation which is almost impossible to codify. Like, you will take years and years to codify, and then some of those codified rules will change. So that's where the autonomous series really breaks that challenge and opens up these host of use cases where you stop operating towards saying, can I spend 6 months to a year codifying this process so an AI can do it, and go through that struggle again and again, to can I be fully automated from day one, smooth flow. I just give the AI what I give a human typically, and then it just does it. I give it the template, I give it a set of instructions, and it just goes to the races. And then I keep kind of giving it feedback in terms of what to do better, like I would a human employee. That's true power in the hands of the banks.
True. Abhinav, we have another question from Emily. She's talking about for banks with legacy core banking systems that are not easily integrated. What does the typical onboarding and connectivity process look like? Right. So, obviously, there are banks which are, core banking is something that doesn't get upgraded very quickly. There's a legacy to it. So, how long before an agent gets operational for someone who has fair amount of legacy, running?
Yeah, no, I think legacy is a challenge almost everyone is facing today, right? Banking, because it's so complex and it touches people's money, it's not like Facebook or Instagram or Anthropic, where you can just send an update every day to your customers, and it's okay if you mess up or you break something. So banks we end up always seeing a lot of legacy. There are, though, quite a few unique ways to get out of the legacy trap, right? One is, you kind of, if you see like your current flow, right, you might be having a situation. We see this across many banks where the credit underwriting agent, the credit memo writer, he actually goes into the system and he pulls out an Excel from core banking, right? And that's what he's using. So we say, okay, let the credit memo writer pull out that Excel and feed it to the AI as a part of the process, right? So they're kind of doing things how they would, but now there's this additional Excel from this other system available. So there's traditional data extraction. We're introducing like lots of where the AI goes in and clicks on the screen, kind of like a human would, and then processes, pulls out the data as well. So where you get stuck in these tricky kind of situations, that's also become a great approach. So there are tons of solutions out there once you start to look, and AI being a little more flexible as a technology, that just makes it a lot easier in those situations.
And our next question is from Rajiv Ahuja, and he's like, does this prompt a human to come into the loop? So there could be policy gaps, right? Comparison with the history may look a little different. The risk ratings need a broader discussion. So how do you essentially, in a normal course, it typically happens, but it takes a long time. How do you bring humans in the loop in this process, right? Because this is a sensitive area. This is almost the core of a bank. How does the AI sort of bring humans in as well?
No, excellent, and no, thank you for that question, Rajiv. Great to connect again. Um, yeah, I think the way we've kind of looked at this problem essentially is that the AI, the credit memo writing AI, right? We don't look at the process as, okay, hey, let's remove the human from this process, right? Which means, hey, I'm writing this fantastic credit memo, everyone get out of my way, and I'm gonna ship it out. You're absolutely right? The AI will kind of do the entire filling to its best of its abilities, and it will create a list of flagged items within the memo itself, right? Like in red, almost like how you would get a legal document, right? With redlining across the document, mapping out exactly where all it feels the eyes of the analyst should go, or the memo writer should go, right? The credit agent at the bank. So that, yes, they'll obviously go through the entire memo once as a human in the loop, but they actually get the red lines to quickly say, hey, there's a problem here. We saw a mismatch in revenue from, let's say, the report that came from the ROC versus the report that came from the API, from your core banking. There seems to be different data here, so I've kind of put both. What do you want to do here? So it's definitely a more collaborative approach, and something that they kind of talk to each other to solve and work through.
So I think that's all the questions we have today. If there's anyone else, we are here for another minute or two. So just drop your questions in the chat, either on LinkedIn or on the StreamYard platform. And if you feel that what is this something that you're looking at your bank, do visit us at fluid.ai. We also have our emails up on screen. You can drop us a note there, or you can connect with us on LinkedIn. So happy to sort of do this. Again, like me and Abhinav was saying, credit memo is just one way autonomous agents go live. If you feel there's a use case similar but not credit memo where you think an autonomous agent power things, happy to explore that with you. We've been doing a lot of workshops with banks as well, in terms of seeing how they can really take this powerful technology and put it into action. Thank you once again for joining today, folks, and hope to stay in touch.